Silence has a weight, a suffocating heaviness that presses down on your chest until it feels like you can't breathe. For years I've carried this burden, this secret buried so deep inside me that even thinking about it makes my stomach churn. It wasn't just fear that kept me quiet, it was shame. Shame for not doing the right thing when it mattered most. Tonight I want to confess, to myself, to you, to whoever might listen, what happened that night. Because maybe, just maybe, saying these words aloud will help me finally let go of the guilt that's haunted me for so long. It all started on a cold, damp night. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had taken a shortcut home from work, cutting through an unfamiliar part of town. As I turned into the alley, I saw them, two figures locked in a struggle, one clearly desperate, the other menacing. Before I could process what was happening, it escalated. The larger figure shoved the smaller one against the wall, their movements frantic and brutal. And then they dragged them into a waiting van. The entire ordeal lasted less than a minute, but it felt like hours. My body froze, rooted to the spot as adrenaline surged through me. I wanted to scream, to run, to do something, but I didn't. Instead, I stood there paralyzed, watching as the van sped off into the night. That moment changed everything. After the initial shock wore off, denial took hold. I told myself it couldn't have been real, that I must have imagined it, exaggerated it in my mind. Maybe it was just a drunken fight gone wrong, or some kind of misunderstanding. Anything to avoid confronting the truth. But deep down, I knew better. The image of those figures, the desperation, the violence, it replayed in my mind over and over again. Still, I convinced myself that staying silent was safer. Safer for me, anyway. What could I have done? Called the police? Described vague shapes in the dark? They'd never believe me. Or worse, they'd ask questions I couldn't answer. So I stayed quiet, burying the memory as deeply as I could. Guilt doesn't hit you all at once. It creeps up slowly, gnawing at the edges of your conscience until it consumes you. Days turned into weeks, and life seemed to return to normal. Except it didn't. Every time I passed a newsstand or scrolled through social media, reminders of that night loomed large. Missing persons posters appeared around town, each face hauntingly familiar, yet frustratingly vague. Then came the articles, the pleas for information, the calls for justice. Each word pierced deeper, reminding me of my silence. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself I couldn't have made a difference. But the truth was undeniable. I could have spoken up, and every day that passed without action weighed heavier on my soul. Avoidance became my coping mechanism. If I ignored the guilt long enough, maybe it would disappear altogether, or so I thought. I surrounded myself with distractions, filling my days with work, hobbies, anything to keep my mind occupied. When thoughts of that night surfaced, I swatted them away with excuses. What's the point now? I'd tell myself. It's too late to change anything. Or worse, someone else probably knows more than I do. These rationalizations were lies. Of course, flimsy attempts to justify my cowardice. Deep down, I knew the truth. I hadn't acted because I was scared. Scared of getting involved, of facing repercussions, of admitting I'd failed. And with each passing day, the weight of my inaction grew unbearable. The breaking point came unexpectedly at a memorial service for the victim. Their name had finally been released, along with details about their life. A loving parent, a dedicated friend, a beacon of kindness. Standing there among strangers mourning their loss, I felt like an imposter. How could I claim to care when I'd done nothing to help bring justice? Watching their family grieve tore me apart. Their pain was raw, unfiltered, and utterly devastating. And yet, here I was, hiding behind my silence, complicit in their suffering. That day I realized I couldn't keep pretending it wasn't my problem. This tragedy wasn't just theirs, it was mine too. Therapy became my lifeline, a safe space to confront the guilt I'd buried for so long. At first, I resisted opening up, ashamed of my role in the tragedy. But eventually, the dam broke. I admitted everything. How I'd witnessed the crime, how I'd stayed silent, how I'd let fear dictate my actions. Saying the words out loud was excruciating, like ripping off a bandage covering a festering wound. Yet it was also freeing. For the first time, I acknowledged my responsibility, not just for failing to act, but for perpetuating my own suffering through silence. My therapist reminded me that regret is human, but growth requires accountability. Slowly, I began to see a path forward, a way to reclaim some measure of integrity. Taking action was terrifying, but necessary. After months of wrestling with my conscience, I decided to come forward. Walking into that police station felt like stepping off a cliff, leaving me suspended in a void of uncertainty. Would they believe me? Would my testimony make any difference? Or would I simply be adding another layer of guilt to an already overwhelming situation? Despite my fears, I recounted everything I remembered: the location, the timing, the figures in the alley. The detective listened patiently, asking clarifying questions without judgment. By the end of our conversation, I felt lighter somehow, not absolved, but closer to redemption. For the first time, I'd faced the consequences of my silence head-on. Not everyone understood why I chose to come forward. Some praised my courage, others questioned my motives. During one particularly heated dinner, my family grilled me relentlessly. "Why now?" they asked. "Why drag yourself into this mess after all this time?" Their skepticism stung, but it also forced me to articulate my reasons. I explained that staying silent had cost me far more than speaking up ever could, that carrying the burden of guilt was no longer an option. While not everyone agreed with my choice, they respected my honesty. More importantly, I respected myself for finally taking ownership of my actions, or lack thereof. Today I walk taller, breathe easier, and live more authentically. Regret will always linger, for missed opportunities, for lives lost, for moments I wish I could undo. But it no longer defines me. Instead, it motivates me to honor the lessons I've learned, that silence isn't safety, that accountability isn't weakness, and that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's triumph over it. As I stroll through this park, feeling the warmth of sunlight on my skin, I remind myself that healing isn't linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and often painful. But it's also beautiful. Thank you for listening to my story.